Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks, we're going to tackle the SEC's toughest schedules for 2024, and of course, the easiest. All right, now this is going to be pretty interesting. This is a ranking of all the SEC teams, their schedules from easiest to toughest. And this is on Fan Nation by James Parks, and he does a pretty darn good job in this. Now, I'm going to disagree with several of them, but it's not easy to rank schedules. But he makes quite a few good points. But like I say, we're going to go through each one. And there's several that I'm going to kind of move around a little bit. But let's start out with the easiest schedule, and that's Missouri. And you look at their schedule, they start out with Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Vanderbilt. So that's 4-0 before they even get out of the bus. Then they got to go to Texas A&M, which is in flux right now, and then UMass. So worst case scenario, they're 5-1. Then they got a couple of tough games here. They got to play Auburn, at Alabama, and Alabama's in flux too. That used to be almost a guaranteed loss for most teams. Not this year. Then Oklahoma, then South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. So they're going to end up with 3 pretty easy wins at the end. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 8 easy wins there. They got 4 tough games, and one of them is marginal. Actually, Texas A&M and Auburn, you never know what you're going to get right now because they're both in flux. That's an easy schedule. And their opponent's record last year was 63-81. So obviously that's the easiest schedule.
Logical.
Now this one I strongly disagree with. They've got Tennessee at number 15. I don't see that at all. I would put them in the middle. But as you look at the schedule, there are a lot of easy wins for Tennessee. Chattanooga, I think they'll handle NC State. Kent State, that's 3-0 in my opinion. Then they got to play Oklahoma at Norman, at Arkansas. Florida, Florida should be an easy win for us, but for some reason, Florida just gives us a lot of grief. It's at Neyland this year, and I feel a whole lot better about playing at Neyland. And then we've got Alabama this year, and it's at Neyland, and we don't know what Alabama's going to be this year. I feel much better about that game now. Then we got Kentucky. We always beat Kentucky. Then we've got Mississippi State. That should be an easy win, I would think. At Georgia, that's probably a loss. UTEP, and then Vanderbilt. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see 9 wins there, and then you've got 3 tough games, which is Alabama, Georgia, and Oklahoma. All right, now Texas, they're considering them to have an easy schedule. Colorado State at Michigan. They're playing Michigan this year.
It's got to be America's team.
UTSA, that's a win. UL Monroe, Mississippi State. Then they got to go to Oklahoma. That'll be a good game. Georgia, that'll be tough. Vanderbilt, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I see about 7 or 8 easy wins there. So, yeah, I can see that. Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss, I think, has got an easy schedule. Very. You look right here. Furman, MTSU, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern. That's 4-0 right there. Then Kentucky, they'll handle them, and South Carolina. They're 6-0 before they even get rolling. Then they got to play Oklahoma at Arkansas. That's 7-1, worst case. Then they've got LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Georgia. So 3 tough games out of 4. Then at Florida, which is at the Swamp, and the Mississippi State. So I like that schedule. I see a couple of tough games there, which would be Oklahoma, Georgia, and maybe LSU. So I like their schedule. They could easily get in the playoff this year. Now, here comes Auburn. You never know about Auburn. I tell you, they might be sneaky good this year. Alabama A&M, that's a win. Cal, funny they're playing Cal. New Mexico beat them last year, but they'll handle them this year. Arkansas, I think they're 4-0. Then Oklahoma, Georgia, that's tough. At Missouri, those 3 games right there they're gonna kick them in the teeth. Then Kentucky, Vanderbilt, UL Monroe, Texas A&M, and then at Bama, of course. They're probably going to win 7 or 8 games at least, and they might surprise and win 10 and somehow sneak into that playoff. It's not impossible. Now let's look at LSU's schedule. They're starting off with USC, of all things. That's a tough start. Then they got Nicholls, South Carolina, UCLA. They're playing the West Coast big time. South Alabama, Ole Miss. That'll be tough. At Arkansas, A&M, Alabama, Florida, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma. That's kind of a middle-of-the-road schedule there. I see some easy wins like everybody's got, but that's pretty tough. All right, Texas A&M with their new coach. Notre Dame is their first game. That's a tough start. Then McNeese, at Florida, Bowling Green. They could be 2-2 right there. You never know. Then they've got Arkansas, Missouri, at Mississippi State, LSU, at South Carolina, New Mexico State, at Auburn, and then Texas. That's a pretty middle-of-the-road one for the SEC. Mike Elko's going to have his hands full. Then we got old Kentucky, Southern Miss, South Carolina, Georgia. They'll be 2-1 there. They'll lose to Georgia. They always lose to Georgia. That's a tough matchup for them because they try to play the same style of football, and they don't have the Jimmies and Joes. Ohio, at Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, Florida, Auburn, at Tennessee. They always lose to Tennessee. Murray State, at Texas, and Louisville. That's a decent schedule. I see them winning 7 or 8 games next year. Arkansas, oh boy. I don't like Arkansas this year. I really don't. Arkansas, Pine Bluff, that's easy. Oklahoma State will give them a game. UAB at Auburn, that'll be tough. Texas A&M, Tennessee, we'll handle them. LSU at Mississippi State, that'll be a very interesting game. Ole Miss will whoop them. Texas will whoop them. Louisiana Tech, they'll win that game, and then at Missouri, they get whooped there. This will be Sam Pittman's last year there, and he'll probably be replaced by Bobby Petrino, which I call the Trojan horse. They brought him in to be offensive coordinator, which is usually the Hail Mary. It's what Jimbo did last year with Bobby Petrino. And I think it's a Trojan horse. I think they want Bobby Petrino to be the head coach, and they're bringing him in as offensive coordinator so he's ready to go when they let Sam Pittman go. All right, South Carolina. Shane Beamer, little Beamer ball. Let's see what y'all have got. I think this is going to be a tougher schedule, and they've got it ranked. Old Dominion at Kentucky. Then you've got LSU and Akron. You start out with not too much difficulty except for LSU. Kentucky might whoop up on you. Then you got Ole Miss and at Alabama and at Oklahoma. Those 3 right there are 3 losses.
How dare you!
Then you got Texas A&M at Vanderbilt, Missouri, Wofford, and then Clemson. That's 4-8, 5-7, and Beamer will probably be gone. And who's their quarterback going to be? Spencer Rattler's gone. Who's your quarterback? That's a big question for South Carolina. They need to start looking around for a head coach, in my opinion. All right, number 6, Georgia. Now, this schedule's pretty tough for them because last year they had an easy one. They got to play Clemson right off the bat. That's tough. Then Tennessee Tech at Kentucky and then at Alabama. So they got 2 tough games out of that first 4. Then they got Auburn. Auburn is not going to be an easy win this year. I'll just go ahead and tell you that.
You walk over, but you're limping back.
Then Mississippi State at Texas. That's very tough. Florida at a neutral spot. At Ole Miss and Tennessee. They got a bunch of tough games, and then UMass and Georgia Tech. That's a much tougher schedule than last year, but they're going to get in the playoff. Their worst case scenario is 10-2, and they might go 11-1 or 12-0. I mean, it's 10-2 is their floor. Their ceiling's 12-0. Well, their ceiling's 15-0. Anyway, that's Georgia. God, they're annoying. Mississippi State, brand new coach Jeff Leby. Let's see, they start out with Eastern Kentucky at Arizona State. That's interesting. Toledo. Then they've got Florida, Texas at Georgia. They're going to get whooped up on there. Texas A&M, Arkansas, UMass. That's a pretty good little stretch there. They're fine. Then they got to end with Tennessee, Missouri, and Ole Miss. That's 3 straight losses right there. That's going to be tough on Leby. All right, now Alabama with their brand new coach, Kalen DeBoer. They start out with Western Kentucky, USF, and then at Wisconsin. They should be 3-0. Then they got to play Georgia. That's going to be tough. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, not too bad. Then they got to go to Tennessee at Neyland. Then Missouri, then LSU. That's 3 really tough games in a row. Then Oklahoma and Auburn. Woo, and they got Mercer in between. That's a tough schedule for Kalen DeBoer. He's never played teams like this ever on a consistent basis. He's never been in a league like this. And the SEC is not for the faint of heart. This is going to be a tough opening challenge for him.
Haven't you noticed? You got to be a man to play in my league.
We'll see how he does. I know he's a good X's and O's coach. We'll see what he does with all this talent. Now, he's lost a bunch of key guys. This is not going to be your father's Alabama. This is a new Alabama, and they're going to have to do it with a lot more high 4 stars. Oh, what a shame. They're like the rest of us. They've got really good talent instead of, well, I need to be careful. They're still going to have elite talent. It's just not going to be as elite. Oklahoma. All right, Oklahoma. First year in the SEC. You're in for a rude awakening. Temple, Houston, Tulane. Then you got Tennessee coming to Norman. That'll be a fun game. Then at Auburn, then Texas. Ooh, man. You got Tennessee, Auburn, and Texas right in a row. That's tough. Then you get a little break with South Carolina. Then you got to play Ole Miss. That's going to be tough. Maine. And then at Missouri, Alabama, and LSU. You got a tough schedule, man. At Oklahoma, welcome to the SEC, big boy. You may not like it as much as you think.
I'm your huckleberry. Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like somebody just walked over your grave.
Vanderbilt. Man, Vanderbilt shouldn't have the second toughest schedule. That's just not fair.
That's not fair.
Don't raise your voice to me.
Let's see who they're going to play. Virginia Tech. That's a tough opener. Alcorn State, Georgia State. They'll get a couple of wins. Missouri, Alabama, at Kentucky. Ball State, Texas, Auburn, South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee. 4-8. All right, then poor old Florida. Billy Napier, what are you doing with this schedule? How did they do this to you? Why did they do this to you? This is so brutal. This is so his last year. All right, so you're going to play Miami first. Then Sanford. That's your one easy game the whole season. One. Then you got to play Texas A&M at Mississippi State, UCF, and don't think UCF is going to be an easy win for you. They're out for blood, I can promise you. They want to prove they're one of the big dogs. Then at Tennessee, you got to come to Neyland. Good luck there. We're going to be, speaking of being out for blood. Then Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State.
This sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before.
Another 0-5 finish at the end of the season, which he'll probably be gone somewhere before that. He might make it to that stretch. He won't make it through that stretch. That is just brutal. You know what the record is of the teams they're playing next year? In 2023, they were 102-44. Poor Florida. Billy, I tell you what, there's not many coaches that can handle this schedule. You've really got, and they're coming off 3 losing seasons in a row, 2 of which are his. I don't see it. I'm not seeing it here, Lloyd. I am not seeing it. Poor Billy's going to be stuck with a $25 million payout. He'll have only made $50 million. I hope he can live on that. Whew, that's going to be rough. Can you imagine having to live on $50 million? That would be tough. Somehow I think he'll get by, though. I hope. Maybe he can pick up a job somewhere, help make ends meet. Anyway, I did want to go over this schedule. I didn't agree with everything. I certainly don't think Tennessee should be at 15th. They should be about 8th, 9th, 10th. I do like their schedule, especially with Alabama being an unknown. But the rest of it, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good job of ranking everything. Florida's definitely number 1. I probably would have put South Carolina like 3rd. I think they've got a tough schedule. Vanderbilt, there's nothing Vanderbilt can do. They are what they are. But anyway, I thought this would be a fun exercise to go through this. Hey, folks, do want to give a shout-out for tomorrow night. I will be on Talkin' VOLS. Their show starts at 7 p.m. It's right here. This is going to be a charity stream for the Fisher House Foundation, helping our military. And I'll be on around 8:30, 8:45-ish. I'm going to do about 15 minutes with Boogie. And there's going to be a bunch of people. You can see A to Z, Pancakes and Bacon, VolQuest 247. I can't see this one under upcoming, but I believe that's Jason Swain of 99.1. And I'm sure there'll be others. So be sure to check that out tomorrow night. It starts at 7 p.m. Again, this is a charity stream. And if you like this content, hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover all the SEC, all these big stories. Jim Harbaugh, I've got my eye on you. And if you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Hit this little button right here. It'll help you get my videos. Makes it easier. And right over here is most recent video. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.